Sex happens in the mind. It's carried out through the physicality of the body.
Mm-hmm.
But the arousal, everything happens in the mind.
Welcome to the Queer Network. This is Queer Conversations. I'm Justin Gerhardt.
And I'm Eddie Fritz.
Today's episode is near and dear to my heart because I am about to introduce to you somebody that's very special to me. She is my personal life coach. She is a life coach and a life skills coach to many other people. She's an explorer of the mind. Please welcome the one and only Tracy Hutchinson, all the way from Riverside, California.
Hi, Tracy.
Hi. Thank you.
So Justin described you as an explorer of the mind, but I believe today we're going to explore sex.
Which happens in the mind.
Well, okay.
I mean, it's carried out through the physicality of the body.
Mm-hmm.
But the arousal, everything happens in the mind.
Mm-hmm.
The pursuit, the anxiety, let's get it right. I hope it goes well. I hope I get mine, or I hope they get theirs, or mutually. So, yeah.
Before we dive deep, which is what we're going to do in this conversation, just a little bit to our audience about your education, what brought you to this place in your life as a life skills coach to a wonderful clientele, me being one of them.
It all started with self-discovery. It's who am I? Who was I? Who am I? Who do I want to be? So I was looking to do my degree, and I knew that I wanted to understand myself based on what everybody else is not talking about, which was sex. I think so let's see a triangle, right? Let's see psychology at the top, right? That's how we think about ourselves. On this end, let's see sociology. That's how we think about ourselves within society and how we fit in if we don't, our tribes, et cetera, okay? And the other one is our sexuality. It plays a crucial part in our identity, okay? And so I knew I wanted to study psychology and sociology, but I understood it. I don't know why I even understood this. To be honest with you, I don't know if I read it in a book or whatever. I just clearly understood that you can't understand a person if you don't have a sense of their psychology, their sociology, and their human sexuality. As you all would say, I have queer tendencies.
Okay.
That means I'm out of the norm. And
right.
I wanted an understanding of that. My very first sexual experience, I think like most people, I've never shared this online to the world, was same sex, was with a woman. And I came to learn through my studies is that is highly likely no matter what you identify with later on. And I remember it being an incredibly positive experience, even though as I present heterosexual.
Off camera, we were talking about casual sex, hooking up, sex in general, relationships. And I think this is like such a fascinating subject. I know Eddie, had some revelations about those three different things. Eddie, do you want to just share a little bit about that? And then we dive into that.
I did.
Oh, yes, you did. There's a difference between sex. There's a difference between casual sex. There's a difference between hooking up. There's a difference between open relationships.
Fuck buddies.
Fuck buddies.
Yeah.
And how everybody has different meanings for these words. That what's a hookup versus what's sex?
Sex is the end product.
Right.
is the goal, if you will, then
Mm-hmm.
oftentimes they're very, very much collapsed into one thing.
Mm-hmm.
So Tracy, how does, like, you know, we start out here with talking about, you know, sex starting out in the mind. You know, for many, many years, I believed in monogamy, and, you know, it was kind of easy for me to believe in that because I haven't had many experiences with long-term relationships. So for me, it was all about casual sex. As time has gone on, and as, you know, things have evolved, and I've known many people who are not monogamous, who are monogamous, but I think in the gay world, I think there are more couples who are not monogamous than are monogamous. And I'm starting to understand that more, because there is a difference between casual sex and a committed relationship. But how does that, like, I'm trying to grasp, like, I mean, you know, I think for a lot of people, it's like, wow, sex is in the mind. So how does casual sex fit into the mind? You know, like, how does it all work with relationships and stuff? Like, you know, like, kind of help me out
some
here,
might
Tracy.
assume
I get where you're struggling to get to.
Yeah. Good.
So,
Okay.
if anybody likes to take notes, you want to jot down expectation and motivations. So if it starts in the mind, you have an expectation, you have a motivation for, let's say, you've had a bad experience in another relationship, or you come from a divorced parents or something like that. You may decide that no, I'm not doing the whole, you know, monogamy, marriage and everything else, because I've seen an example of that, right? Which is absolutely no evidence to make that, to form that opinion. You know, but at the same time, it's so dramatic to our minds to maybe go through that as a child of divorced parents. And I'm, you know, speaking about myself, I didn't see a lot of value in the whole monogamy and marriage and that sort of thing. And I knew, and the reason I wasn't seeing the value is because I'd come from that experience. So when I say jot down expectation and motivation, you have to say, why do you have that motivation? Why do you have those expectations? Why are you hoping that it's going to be different than your parents' relationship, or your best friend's relationship, or, you know, your uncle who's married to a man and you're like, oh, that's not working out. Everything goes into the mind and gets filtered in there. So when you want a fuck buddy, there's a motivation behind that. You want a fuck buddy because, and it's very enlightening and awakening for each and every one of us to know why we have the motivations we have. Mm-hmm. And because our opportunities, our options expand greatly when we understand what our motivations, what are we really expecting, what are we trying to pursue, what are we trying to create? Are we trying to create an opposite?
When you say, you know, motivation to have a fuck buddy, motivation to have casual sex, what would be the motivation to want a fuck buddy? What would be the motivation to want to have casual sex?
Right. Well, one of the things about having a fuck buddy is there's certainty in that, right? You have this arrangement with this person, correct? You have,
but you don't have to commit to all the But you don't have to commit to all the trappings of a
But you are
full-blown relationship.
committing to something. You
You
are
are.
committing to something. So even I hope in this day and age that fuck buddies would actually have an agreement of some sort, like, you know, mutual safety, mutual that, you know, that peace that can even be created, which some people think would only happen in that security and would only happen in a committed relationship. But no, fuck buddies, they rely on each other.
Mm-hmm.
And
So then
so
what's the difference? Like, it's still a relationship. So it's not a
it
committed
is.
relationship, but there is a level of commitment.
There is a commitment. There's an agreement, absolutely. And some people think, you know, as long as I keep it this way, then I have a certain amount of distance. I can keep that
Right.
distance.
Okay, so maybe there's a commitment for a certain period of time, but with a fuck buddy, you can be just like, okay, you know what? Like, I don't want to be fuck buddies anymore, or let's not be fuck buddies. Where I think you could say that pretty easily, but not so much in a relationship, because there are so many things tied to a relationship.
That's interesting because
They're all
it's
labeled.
all in it's all labels that we've
Yeah,
given
all
these
labels.
things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the idea that, like, you know, committed relationship, you still wouldn't feel comfortable to be like, you know what, I'm done, this is not working. But in a fuck buddy relationship, you don't feel like there's the same tie to each other. So if something else comes, like my foot is already half out the door. I've never actually put both my feet in the door.
Yeah, but it's easy because with a fuck buddy, you don't, like, with a relationship, you probably have, you know, your families are intertwined, your financial stuff is intertwined, all of these things. You don't have that with fuck buddies. So it's a lot easier to just say, okay, you know what, let's not do this anymore. You know, I understand what you're saying about level of commitment as far as safety and,
Mm-hmm.
you know, but, you know, I know someone who has a few fuck buddies, you know, it just, and so there too.
I want to make sure that you're, you know, not hearing something that I'm not saying.
Okay.
It's not wrong. I mean, great. If you got a fuck buddy or you got 4 fuck buddies, great. You still have a motivation for having fuck buddy versus having a committed relationship. They're different motivations.
Then we have casual sex, right? So casual sex, to me, and I'd like to hear what you think about it, but to me, casual sex is like, okay, I get on Grindr or I get on one of the apps and it's like, you know, okay, let's hook up. So we hook up and we fuck and that's it, right?
The pure motivation for that is let's get together so we can fuck.
Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So it's like fuck buddy is like kind of in between casual sex and a relationship.
Don't we know them? Don't we know our fuck buddies? Like,
yeah,
aren't they kind of friends as well? Maybe we'll even go out and party with them or whatever, and we might even meet somebody else that we might end up in a relationship, or we might end up having casual sex with.
Right.
Right, and
so
then
yeah,
on another
casual
week,
sex
a fuck
is
buddy
that in
might
between.
end up having casual sex with the very same guy or gal that you had,
well,
casual sex with last week.
Yeah, another way to put it, which is a little bit more not quite as crass, is friends with benefits. I mean, that's used.
Yes.
You know,
yes.
just as much, if not more, is friends with benefit. And you're describing that. So you could have a friends with benefit who have the same benefit with another friend. You know, and again, it's the familiarity thing, the maybe the safety thing. It's like
it is. Yeah.
As opposed to casual sex.
And it's based on people's, what are they afraid of, that they'd rather have a friends with benefits because, they have a motivation for not getting in a relationship as much as people have motivations for getting in a relationship. Mm-hmm. They also have expectations that they never say at the altar.
Yeah, I like that. That's beautiful.
Which I think is a part of, I think that's a part of these different levels of the types of relationships that we get ourselves into, that like there's this umbrella of like the relationship, the committed relationship, where it's an expectation that you do share everything. Not that that always happens, but that's the expectation. And then in these other subcategories, it's there seems to be less pressure to share those expectations with each other.
In the friends with benefits relationship, I mean, they know where like the line is, but sometimes without even saying they know where the line is. Like, you know, in their head, the makeup, the neurological makeup of that relationship is, oh, I can see him across the bar or her across the bar, and she's, you know, flirting with whatever. And then you say, I can't, you know, say anything. Now, if
Right.
I might have feelings about her flirting with somebody else.
Yep.
Right.
You know,
but there's that invisible line where we don't cross because we are friends with benefits.
there's the whole thing of connection, of connecting with somebody. So there's a connection with a friend with benefits because they're your friend, you know, they're your friend, as opposed to casual sex where there really isn't a connection because it's just sex. So that plays into it too. It's more of a like, you know, I feel really connected to this person. I don't want to have a relationship, but we're really good friends and we have really great sex. So, you know, it's very safe. There's no commitment there.
Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say something that might be controversial. Who knows? We'll see what happens with the comments. Less burdensome. Like the friends with benefits
Right.
have burdens. There's right. So you can end that at any point.
Yeah.
Unless the friends with benefit is now your roommate or was your roommate, and now they were first your friend and now they're friends with benefits and they're also your roommate. Now you have an overlapping of expectations and overlapping of pursuits. All because we don't explore motivations. We don't explore the ethos in which we find ourselves in different aspects of society. When, Justin, is it okay if we use you as an example?
Yeah.
Okay, so Justin was raised on a farm in rural Canada, right? By two longtime married heterosexual parents, right? That's his ethos. The other thing is too, he was raised in a church, in a specific faith that believed that to be gay is wrong. Okay? So he is actually being raised up, brought up inside of an ethos. And the moment he has a feeling that goes against the ethos, there's an opportunity for self-hatred and hiding and scared and a lot of different trauma, actually. Someone like Justin, the moment he feels he's different, the first thing that the raising the ideas that were set forth by his parents and by his community create what's called an ethos. An ethos is a character, disposition, or fundamental values of a people's culture or even corporation, as we know. Okay, so when you wake up one day, 12, I don't know, 20, whatever, and that has been your ethos. That has been the fundamental understanding of your community. And you wake up saying, I am so not that. There's trouble in paradise now. That also causes us to have a different set of motivations. So we hide, and we repress, and we are suppressed even by the ethos that we're raised in.
Mm-hmm.
But there's programming that happens at church, and there's programmings that happen in public schools and some and private schools, I'm sure. And there is programming that happens in, our commercials will tell you the programming of our society. They will give notice, right? And start looking at the motivations of others like that. And then you can start to relax and get, okay, what are my motivations?
Can you give some examples of what the motivation would be behind somebody wanting to have a friends with benefit, casual sex, and a relationship?
The motivation for wanting the opposite than what they were raised in. The motivation for attempting to, if they have a belief that to be in a committed relationship doesn't work, then their motivation is to have that belief reinforced. Right? And what happens is now their beliefs are running them, and they're not really choosing for themselves anymore.
Right, because I think so many people, I think this idea of that's just my preference. I just like
And
that. But we don't really think about why.
Yeah, exactly. And that is such a deep place to start living from. I love my mom. She always says, well, that's just me. If I could say one thing to your viewers that would help them, is to have your viewers be dissatisfied with, well, that's just me. I just prefer casual sex. I prefer, friends with benefits. I would ask them to explore that deeply, even if it's just for shits and giggles. Just find out, where did that start? Right? So it's kind of like a person that's addicted to caffeine, and then looking back to find out, when did I really become addicted to caffeine? When is it that a day cannot go by without me consuming some caffeine? There is a day, there's a moment, and it's so subtle that just that exploration in, why is it that I say that about myself? That's a great place to start.
So it's the exploration of the motivation. What about the motivation of validation? Because to me, having casual sex, I can tell you, and again, this is out there, that a big motivation is validation. Is that I'm good enough, that I can get, this good looking guy and this blah, blah, blah. And, for most of my life, I have.
One of the best books ever written was, I believe, is You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay. And in the first few pages, you see this list of things that, like, what everybody suffers from this, and one of the biggest things is that I'm not good enough. And every time we reach out and we get the casual sex or whatever, there's very little to risk, other than our health, possibly, other than our health. We get a validating fix. But it is an addiction just like anything else. And that eventually that validation wears off, and we need to go and drink from the same trough again, whatever that might be. I was very promiscuous, and all of the sex I was having was about validation. With all the work I've done and studying my brain as much as I study the brain, I got to my motivations. I got to what I was, and it was so empty. And Eddie, you might know that experience, that again, that validation is just like a heroin high, and you need more next time and more next time and more next time. And the best thing that we can do is to cure our addiction.
Again, I haven't had many relationships, but when I do, and I've just been through one, through all of that and all that casual sex, what I know that I want, I just want to love somebody, and I want someone to love me.
And that's a heart thing.
Yeah.
That's a heart thing. That
a heart
is,
thing.
it's a heart thing. Yeah. I want to give from here, not from there. I want to give from here, and I want these hearts to be aligned, and I want them to be vibrating with each other and aligned with each other. And at some point, you don't care if you don't finish or not.
Right.
It's not.
Because it's in a different frequency.
Yes.
The heart chakra, this part, what I'm learning.
It's a lower level of consciousness. Okay, when we go out for the fuck buddies and we go out for that casual sex, it lives at a lower level of consciousness. It's very carnal, it's very physical. And we can actually have a spiritual experience with another human being with desiring, and that's a beautiful thing, to desire. Your motivation to experience love, right? And get this, we can experience a love that has not been defined by society or by the ethos. Right? We see examples, what we think is examples. Your parents are an example of love, but it's not the example that you're looking to express.
Right. And can I also add here that, our world, and when I say our world, the gay world, because that's just in my world, is all about the physical. It's about the physical, and it's about sex. And that's what, is in front of us all of the time. And there's so much pressure. There's so much pressure to be a certain way, to look a certain way, to, there are people, and I know people who just look for the connection. That's more important. But for the most part, it's really about the physical, and that's hard.
Yeah, there's been a lot of pressure.
It's about the physical is at the face of it, is the mask, but the connection is the deep desire that people aren't speaking of, very, very authentically transparent.
You're saying that they're looking for something deeper, but they're using the physical.
Right. Exactly. It's like, if I would say one motivation for all of these different hookups and everything else, the biggest motivation behind that is fear. Fear of not being enough. And look, if you don't have to go down that road to where everybody sees if you leave the toilet seat up, or you don't, you squeeze the toothpaste from whatever, or leave the cap off or whatever, you don't risk any of that. You don't risk people seeing you. You don't risk that person seeing you.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
I
Right.
can totally understand that.
Safe. You're safe, but you're not vulnerable. You're not authentic.
And that's why also people tend to attract people who are not available, because they're safe.
It's same frequency.
There's no risk.
Yeah.
There's no risk because they don't have to be seen. They don't have to be.
They don't take the risk of being rejected.
Right.
Of another person. All they have in their head is, I'm not good enough. I'm not good enough. Right. And if they get to that level of risk with another human being, they're afraid that they'll see that they're not good enough. When in actuality, you're beautiful, you're wonderful. With all of your warts, as my mother would say, warts and all, you know, with all of your foibles and everything else, you are beyond beautiful.
So we started this conversation saying there's nothing wrong with casual sex. There's nothing wrong with hooking up. You can have as many fuck buddies as you want. The motivation is clearly like at the core of this conversation. I know people at home are asking, well, is it wrong to have a fuck buddy then? Like when you're saying that it also isn't the truest, authentic, deep connection? Is there a version of it where it is authentic?
You're afraid of being seen and all these things that are like kind of these negative things of why you're doing that. So yeah, I get what Justin, yeah.
No, because it's once you are vulnerable, once you're transparent, it's not called fuck buddy anymore. You're having a real beautiful human experience with another person. You don't have to call it these debased names.
I was going to say, it's these labels that have so much meaning that we break through by taking that moment to say, this is just me, but why? Again,
it's part of the ethos. We, from the Victorian age, we have made sex wrong. It's the ethos that we all swim in. You know, it's like the goldfish isn't aware of the water.
Right.
We are not aware of the ethos. The ethos that we, from the Victorian age, and we have been told what we're doing and what we want to do is wrong. When it becomes authentic, when you're able to say, I want to do this because I want to do it, because you've already examined your motivations. You've already are aware of what you think your perceived shortcomings are, because not, all of our shortcomings come from this ethos. Like all of the beliefs about ourselves comes from this ethos. If we can simply see everyone in their natural state of authentic, pure energy, pure consciousness, we wouldn't be concerned about what we're wearing, what we weigh, what our muscle tone. We would be doing that because we would be working out because it's right to keep the car running. Just like you don't, when you take the car to get a tune-up, nobody sees the results of the tune-up, right? You're doing it because it's the right thing to do for the vehicle, right? And then, the moment you take it to a shop and you don't do the tune-up, but you get the spoilers on and you get the big rims and various other things, now you're doing it based on a motivation because you don't think you're good enough.
Is this what you're saying? That I recognize that the motivation behind me wanting to have casual sex or a fuck buddy is the fact that I want to be validated. And if I admit that and recognize it, then it's okay?
No, because there's consequences. You explore it. It's not fuck buddy anymore. When you're aware of your motivations, right? And keenly aware of your motivations, right? So you just told me you want validation. Why do you want validation? Because you think you're not good enough, right? Can you imagine having an experience, a sexual experience with another man, knowing that you're good enough?
Imagine the motivation behind casual sex, whether it's casual, hookup, any of those, and the motivation isn't to validate yourself, it's to have that sexual level moment,
Having that human
or
experience. We're our spiritual beings having a human experience. There's nothing wrong with us having that human experience, but we're trying, if we believe in our minds that we're not good enough, and this sex might make me feel good enough, because you always, I know all three of us could admit when it goes, it's like, it's never enough. It's just the same as that heroin high. It's just not enough. We always have to, we have to drink a little bit more, have a little bit more. And because of our motivations, we're not getting what we truly want.
right.
And Eddie, that you've gotten to the point where you understand that you have been doing what you're doing to get motivation.
Yeah.
When what
To get
you are,
validation.
yeah,
To get validation. Yeah.
Sorry, validation.
And so when you stop needing that validation, when you stop trying to prove yourself, when, as you said, as Justin said, when you accept that you are good enough, then the motivation is completely different. Then you can have that human experience with another
Right, and then we
person.
don't have to label it as casual or fuck buddies or
Right.
friends with benefits. We have the experience. So, years ago, I went to New York. I met, Match.com years ago, right? And I met a man, and we were talking. I met him online. We were talking a lot online. I took my time with that, about 4 months, and then we started phone calling, and then we agreed to meet in New York City. I was in California, he was in Maryland, and but we knew that, we were really getting close. Like, we were sharing, like, not dick pics or breast pics or anything like that. We were sharing from the depths of our souls. We were sharing what we were afraid of, right? And I just knew that I was starting to bond with this man so beautifully. I went to New York. In 3 days, every sexual fantasy I ever had came true. And it wasn't about the sex. It was that I was experiencing a heightened consciousness. It was so authentic. And Wink, Mark, if you're listening, I still love you today. And it was the most incredible, authentic weekend. And you know what? There was everybody, as the population in New York and all I didn't see anybody the whole weekend. Felt like the streets were empty. All I saw was him. And I know that all he saw was me.
And it's a beautiful thing to experience. I experienced that, recently at the beginning of a relationship. And so I know exactly what you're talking about. And, as a friend said to me, I fell in love with that. I fell in love with that experience,
Yes.
exactly what you just described. There was nobody.
Because we were so vulnerable at the very beginning. We're so vulnerable. We're so open. And what we do after a while is, that's why our partners are looking for that person that they fell in love with, because it seems gone. Like the invasion of the body snatchers, and somebody laid a pod next to the bed, and the person I fell in love with is gone, because all those insecurities start to set in, and they begin to close tightly, right? And then all those fears are expressed in everything they do and say. Right,
all your insecurities come in, all your fears come in, all that stuff comes in, and it takes away from that pure love that you felt in the beginning.
You opened like a beautiful blooming rose, and you just, the thing is, the rose doesn't worry about the next day when it's going to close. It doesn't worry about the day that it will die on the vine. It doesn't. The rose it does what it does.
And again, believe that you're good enough, and believe in yourself, and have that confidence, and have that.
And let me say something about confidence. we're looking at common usage versus conscious usage. So when we talk about confidence, you know, right, that's the common usage. You know, we're like, oh, that person's really confident. They're walking, they're strutting down the street or whatever. They're on the catwalk, whatever. And we think that's confidence, right? In a conscious usage, confidence is unattached. They don't require this to be any more than what it is right now. Like, I don't need you to be a certain way. I don't need you to call on Monday. You know, after a weekend of casual sex, let's say, or that experience, that physical experience, because we have now figured out that we are the one that we're looking for. That's me. That's you. You are your one. But we spend so much time pursuing it as pursuing this person that is external from us. It's separated. They're separated from us, and that's just not so.
And this is why this is a daily practice, because society, the ethos that we live in, constantly reminds us that we are supposed to get our validation outside of us, that all these things are going to make us feel happy.
Yeah.
And when in fact, you know, joy comes from, as we have talked about in my coaching, joy is something I produce.
You don't produce it, you allow it. Happiness is something that we pursue. Joy is what is allowed from within. We carry joy with us all the time. Mm-hmm. All we have to do is open the door to it and allow it, right? But we're pursuing, when we pursue that sexual partner, whatever, we're pursuing something that we think is external from, and happiness is always brought by the external, when the whole time you had unlimited amount of joy with you. I mean, just unlimited. We can't, you know, it's infinite. The joy that you are the potential of is infinite.
So that is a beautiful way to end this. And I am filled with joy from having you on in this beautiful queer conversation. And I can't tell you how much gratitude that I feel, and that we are so blessed to have you. And this is just the beginning of many queer conversations with you. So.
Right. And yeah, I want to add to that as a huge, I'm so grateful as well. What it's made even more clear to me in this diving deep into a queer conversation is that they are different, weird, uncomfortable, not your average conversation, not your surface conversation, because what we did today was queer in every sense of the word. And that's what we're all about on the Queer Network.
It is, but I'm going to say what we also say many times, that, you know, anyone can be queer. And this conversation we just had is not just for queer people, it's for everyone. Absolutely. And that's the beauty of it, that, you know, this can be relatable, like I said, to anyone.
Thank you so much, both of you, for having me.
What a beautiful, beautiful thing that was to witness you sharing and being so vulnerable. I mean, I've seen it off camera, but I think it's so powerful to let people know that that's so beautiful to share, and that we should do more of it.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be so afraid to do it, and because this is life-changing work.
Through this time I've gone through, I've just decided that, you know what, I'm not afraid anymore, and I'm just going to be me. And, you know, I have a lot of work to do, but, you know, at this point in my life, I love that word, unapologetically, and I am going to be unapologetically myself. And I urge everyone out there to if you're not already that way, to work towards that, because it's such a freeing thing,
And what else are we here to do
yeah.
but to be our most authentic self? And it takes work. Like we said in this conversation with Tracy, there's so much programming and ethos that are telling us other things. And so it takes work, but it's so worth it.
And I would like to say, kind of in wrapping it up here, that in the words of our good friend Jay, who was on our show last week and the week before doing breath work, you have to feel it to heal it. Anyway, everyone, this is just the start of our amazing queer conversations that we're going to have. We hope you enjoyed it. We hope we will see you again next week. If you haven't already subscribed to the channel, please do so.
Also, guys, you know what? We're putting these out as podcasts as well. So if you don't want to listen to, or if you don't want to watch it, this queer conversation is a really great format also just in audio. So we'll put those links for the podcast in the description, and you can always just watch it, or you can always just listen to it there if you want.
Hey, why wouldn't they want to watch us? Come on.
I mean, that's true too. But if you're driving and you just want to listen.
Absolutely. Okay, everyone. Thanks for watching.
Right.